This holiday treat actually begins with leftovers. Its origins travel all the way back to medieval times, slowly transforming over the centuries. It's also part of a late-night celebration welcoming Christmas. We're exploring the history and origins of El Salvador's Budin. I'm your host, Glenn Warren, and welcome to another serving of Seasons Eatings, the podcast which explores the history and origins of your favorite Christmas foods. Seasons Eatings is available wherever you download your favorite podcasts, so please subscribe so we can have other listeners join in the Christmas table. If you have a quick minute, please leave a review for the podcast. It lets me know how I'm doing as well as helping others find the podcast. And if you let me know you left a review, I'll send you a Seasons Eatings sticker as my personal thank you. Seasons Eatings can also be found on all the socials. All these links can be found on the website, seasonseatingspodcast.com. And while you're at the site and feeling extra generous this holiday season, you can buy me an eggnog. Just click on the little cup at the top of the page and you can leave a donation for as little as $3. Each donation goes towards the running of the podcast and is greatly appreciated. I want to thank Bob and Mark from the Festive Foreign Film Fans podcast for the inspiration for this episode. They cover holiday films from around the world and discuss the customs, music, and, of course, the food. I'll leave a link to their show in the show notes. And if you're a film buff, you'll definitely want to check them out. I want to start today not with technique or even with ingredients, but with a moment. It's late in the evening on December 24th. The kitchen is still warm from hours of cooking. There's a smell of roasted meat, maybe tamales, coffee starting to brew, and somewhere in the background, there's something sweet in the oven. Cinnamon, sugar, and caramel just beginning to darken. That dessert in many Salvadorian homes is budin. And what's interesting, both from a baker and a historian perspective, is that budin isn't just a dessert. It's part of the structure of Christmas itself. It's something that appears year after year, often without much variation, carrying memory with every time it's made. Because Christmas baking across cultures tends to follow a very specific pattern. It's the time of year when ingredients become richer, more eggs, more sugar, more butter, more spice. It's also the time when recipes become more fixed, more ritualized. People don't experiment as much. They recreate. And budin fits perfectly into that framework. It's rich, aromatic. It's made in large quantities, and maybe most importantly, it's designed to be shared. But here is where it gets even more interesting. For all of its association with celebration, budin actually comes from something much more practical. At its core, it's a solution. It's a way to use stale bread, a way to extend ingredients, a way to transform something that might otherwise be discarded into something that feels generous and complete. And that contrast between humble origin and festive significance is really what defines the dish. So today we're going to explore budin from both sides. We'll look at it as bakers, breaking down the structure of custard, the role of starch and protein, and what actually happens in the oven when you bake a bread pudding like this. But then we'll also look at it historically. how a dish that begins as a form of necessity in medieval Europe travels across the Atlantic, adapts to new ingredients and cultures, and eventually becomes part of Christmas tradition in El Salvador. Because that's the story Budin tells. It's not about just bread and milk and eggs. It's about transformation, technically, culturally, and historically. So what exactly is Budin? Well, the word itself just means pudding. So at its core, Budin is a custard-based bread pudding. That's the technical way to describe it. You take stale bread, soak it in a mixture of eggs, milk, sugar, and spices, and bake it until everything sets in a sliceable dessert. Most Budin recipes include stale bread, eggs, milk, sugar or a unrefined cane sugar, a little bit of butter, vanilla, cinnamon, sometimes raisins, occasionally a little bit of rum or sweet wine. Sometimes they may even use unrefined cane sugar. And some versions may use a condensed milk, which adds a richness and a distinct caramel sweetness. From a technical perspective, the dish relies on 3 structural elements. So bread is the starch matrix. The bread absorbs the liquid custard and swells as the starch granules hydrate. During baking, these starches gelatinize and help stabilize the final structure. Different breads produce different textures, so airy white breads create a lighter pudding, while denser breads produce a more compact slice. From a technical standpoint, Budin also represents something that professional bakers value: the intelligent use of leftovers. Historically, bakeries often had a surplus of bread at the end of the day. Rather than waste it, bakers transformed it into secondary products, such as breadcrumbs, croutons, stuffing, and bread pudding. Budin fits perfectly into that philosophy. It demonstrates that excellent desserts don't always require specialized ingredients. In El Salvador, the bread most commonly used is pan francés, which is an everyday white bread roll similar to a small French baguette. It's crusty when it's fresh, but once it goes stale, it becomes perfect for soaking up liquid. And that's the entire point of this dish. For most of human history, bread was one of the most labor-intensive foods people produced. You had to grow the grain, mill the flour, mix the dough, and bake it. Throwing away bread simply wasn't an option. So cooks found different ways to reuse it. So the bread is mixed with a combination of eggs, milk, and other ingredients. Eggs act as a setting agent. Egg proteins coagulate roughly between 70 or 80 degrees centigrade, which is about 150-ish to 180-ish Fahrenheit. So as the custard heats in the oven, these proteins form a network that traps the liquid and binds the bread together. So if you have too many eggs, the pudding becomes a rubbery mess. Too few, and it just falls apart into this loose bread mass. So Budin usually strikes a balance that produces a sliceable structure while still remaining soft. And obviously we need a little bit of sweetness, as this is a dessert. So sugar usually provides that sweetness. I also said they could use cane sugar, but it also contributes to browning and moisture retention. In many Salvadorian preparations, a caramel syrup is poured over the top or baked into the base of a pan, and this creates a glossy surface and deepens the flavor through caramelization. To understand Budin, we need to zoom out and talk about the broader history of bread pudding. Bread pudding is one of the oldest recorded desserts in European culinary history. In medieval England, cooks made a dish called a poor man's pudding. Basically, stale bread was soaked in milk or water, combined with eggs and fat, and then baked into a filling meal. These dishes were practical. Bread was a staple food, and throwing it away would have been unthinkable. Over time, as sugar and spices became more available, these humble puddings gradually evolved into desserts. By the 16th and 17th centuries, bread puddings often included such things as dried fruit, spices such as nutmeg, and then a little bit of wine or brandy. These ingredients signaled a shift from survival cooking to festive cooking. And this is where colonial history enters the story. When Spanish colonists arrived in the Americas, they brought their culinary traditions with them. Among those traditions were custards, puddings, and sweetbreads. The Spanish word budin, as I said before, comes from the English word pudding, which entered Spanish culinary language during the 18th and 19th centuries as European food culture circulated through trade and empire. In Latin America, European baking traditions merged with local ingredients and regional tastes. Milk, sugarcane, tropical fruits, and new spices shaped the evolution of these dishes. What emerged across the region were many localized forms of bread pudding. In Cuba, you have pudín de pan. In Puerto Rico, you have budín de pan. In El Salvador, you just have budín. Each version reflects the ingredients and the cultural influences of its region. Now we'll talk about how budín became part of the Christmas tradition after the break. Don't you wish the holidays would last the entire year? Well, now it can. Head on over to mymerrychristmas.com where you can enjoy the holidays all year long. You can chat with other Christmas enthusiasts on any topic you can think of. Movies, books, cooking, decorating, anything. If it's about Christmas, it's here. Joining My Merry Christmas is completely free. But if you become a Premier member, you can enjoy extra bonuses such as a yearly Christmas card exchange and Kringle Radio, Santa's exclusive Christmas radio station. For only $19.95, you can become a Premier member of mymerrychristmas.com for a full year. So head on over to mymerrychristmas.com and start enjoying Christmas all year long. If you're like me, you have fond memories of Christmases past, when you settled in with your family to watch cherished Christmas classics like Rudolph, Frosty, or maybe you remember trekking to the theater to see big holiday releases like A Christmas Story, Home Alone, and my personal favorite, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. I hope you'll rediscover a piece of that innocence while shopping at retrofestive.ca. While you're here, why not pick up some gifts for your loved ones? We're always posting new items, so be sure to check back often. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. From leg lamps to moose mugs, puzzles and pop culture, Retro Festive is your one-stop online shop for all your holiday gifts. Visit retrofestive.ca and be like Uncle Eddie and get something for you. Something really nice. Now, while bread pudding can be made technically any time of the year, Christmas you bring out the special ingredients. And in El Salvador, budin has become strongly associated with Christmas celebrations. And to understand why, we need to think about how holiday baking traditionally works. Historically, holidays were the time when people allowed themselves to use ingredients that were otherwise too expensive for everyday cooking. Things like butter and eggs and dried fruit and spices. All of these ingredients appear in Budin. The spices in particular, cinnamon and vanilla, give the dessert a warm aroma that fits naturally into the sensory experience of holiday baking. Christmas Eve in El Salvador, known as Noche Buena, is a major family celebration. Large meals are prepared late in the evening, and families gather together well into the night. And because budin is baked in a large pan and sliced, it's perfect for serving to a crowd. One dessert can easily feed 10, 12 people. And that communal quality is exactly what holiday food is about. Holiday desserts often function as edible rituals. When a family prepares budin